It was supposed to be a night of laughter, light, and a brief escape from the relentless grind of daily life. Nigel had imagined an easygoing Halloween evening, a chance to unwind, to lose himself in music and costumes, surrounded by friends and the familiar buzz of revelry. The kind of night where worries are left at the door, replaced with playful mischief and carefree moments. Yet, as the darkened October sky settled over the city, Nigel's world was about to twist irrevocably, searing that night into his memory forever. Nigel stood in front of the bedroom mirror, wrestling with the stubborn laces of his pirate boots. His costume was a hasty affair, a plastic sword that rattled with every movement and an eye patch that refused to stay put. He tugged and adjusted, muttering under his breath. "Almost ready," he mumbled. The faint sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway, growing louder. "Are you ready yet?" Abigail's voice called, light and teasing. Nigel tried to steady his fingers as he pulled on the last lace. "Almost. How about you?" There was no reply, just the sound of soft footsteps crossing the room. When Abigail finally appeared, Nigel's breath caught in his throat. She was breathtaking. Dressed as a vampire queen, Abigail's costume hugged her frame with an intoxicating confidence. The tight black bodice accentuated every curve, and a leather skirt climbed daringly high up her thigh, flaunting an audacity Nigel hadn't quite expected. Her smoky makeup transformed her face into a mysterious enigma, dark, sharp, and alluring. Her eyes sparkled with a challenging glint, a silent dare wrapped in her playful smile. "Wow," Nigel breathed, stunned. She twirled with the grace of a dancer, the skirt swaying enticingly. "Too much?" she asked, a mischievous edge in her voice. Nigel forced a smile, swallowing the uneasy knot that twisted in his stomach. "No, you look incredible." The words felt hollow as he felt a flicker of discomfort. Yet, beneath everything, there was pride to be with a woman who could command the room's attention effortlessly. By the time they arrived at Lauren's house, the party was at its wildest. Music pounded through the walls, swirling with an intoxicating mix of laughter and conversation. The scent of pumpkin spice candles intertwined with spilled drinks, settling thickly in the air. Costumed guests squeezed into every corner, their energy crackling like electricity. Lauren herself was a perfect zombie bride, her makeup smeared artfully to mimic decay, her veil at an angle that suggested disarray past the theatrical. She greeted them warmly. "Nigel, Abigail, you made it," she exclaimed, pulling Abigail in for a warm hug. Her eyes flicked over Abigail's daring outfit with a sly smile. "Girl, you're going to be the star of the show tonight." Abigail laughed, a sound both infectious and, Nigel thought, layered with something darker. Navigating the chaotic crowd, Nigel stayed close to Abigail as she charmed her way through the conversations. Her laughter grew louder, more intoxicating, her movements fluid and enchanting. Yet a seed of unease began to sprout inside Nigel. Her touches lingered on others' arms just a moment too long, her eyes sparkled a little too brightly at some, and there was a strange distance in the way she sometimes looked at him. He swallowed his doubts, telling himself to enjoy the night and trust in their bond. But deep inside, a gnawing knot tightened with every passing moment. Then came the frantic moment when Nigel's gaze darted through the crowd, and Abigail was gone. Panic surged in his chest as he approached Lauren. "Have you seen Abigail?" His voice betrayed his worry. Lauren smiled lazily, unbothered. "Relax, Nigel, she's just mingling. Let her have fun." "But she's not." "Trust me," Lauren interrupted smoothly. "She's fine." Nigel stood frozen, the dismissive words stinging. He pushed through the throng to the patio, and there Abigail was deep in conversation with a man dressed as a werewolf. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a self-assured air that prickled Nigel's nerves. "There you are," Nigel said, voice tighter than he intended. Abigail's smile faltered but didn't vanish. "Oh, hey, Nigel. This is Tyler. He works with Lauren." Tyler's hand extended with a grin sharp enough to set Nigel's teeth on edge. Nigel shook it curtly, a cold edge in his grip. Tyler launched into stories about haunted houses, his easy charisma a stark contrast to Nigel's growing discomfort. Abigail stayed close to Nigel, but her warmth felt distant, distracted. Her laughter bubbled with ease when Lauren suggested a game of truth or dare, and she dragged him into the circle despite his reluctance. The game spiraled fast, shots taken, secrets spilled, dares pushing boundaries. When it was Abigail's turn, Lauren's mischievous grin deepened. Truth or dare? Dare, Abigail answered confidently. Lauren's voice dropped to a teasing whisper. I dare you to kiss the most attractive person here. The circle erupted in cheers and whistles. Nigel's stomach twisted, expecting her to turn towards him to reassure him in the chaos. But instead, Abigail turned to Tyler. Nigel's world froze as he saw her lean in, lips meeting Tyler's in a kiss that was deliberate and lingering, electric and intimate. The crowd roared, but their voices faded beneath the storm pounding in Nigel's chest. When she pulled back, her eyes met his. Nigel, she said softly, it's just a game. But the words did nothing to quell the fire raging inside him. The night air outside was cold and sharp when Nigel pushed through the crowd, muttering, I need some air. Minutes later, Abigail found him alone on the patio. Her voice was cautious. Are you okay? No, Abigail, he snapped, voice raw. I'm not okay. What the hell was that? It was just a dare, she said, defensive. Everyone was watching. I didn't want to make it awkward. Well, congratulations, Nigel shot back, the bitterness cutting him deep. You made it awkward now. She reached for his hand, but he pulled away. You kissed another man. In front of everyone, Abigail. It didn't mean anything, she insisted, her frustration rising. Before Nigel could respond, Tyler appeared wearing a smug, false concern. Everything okay out here? He asked. No, Nigel growled. Mind your own business. Nigel, Abigail said sharply, stepping between them. Tyler shrugged and retreated with a smirk. Nigel's voice turned cold when he faced Abigail. This is unbelievable. You're overreacting, she argued sharply. He met her eyes, voice firm. I'm going home. Her expression froze, shocked and betrayed. Why? Because I'm done pretending this is okay. Abigail didn't follow him. Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of defiance sparking. You don't own me, Nigel, she said steadily. If you want to leave, then leave. I'm staying. The silence between them was heavy with finality. Nigel's heart shattered piece by piece. For the first time, he understood. Nothing would ever be the same again. The cold bit into Nigel's skin as he slid into the driver's seat of his car, the crisp night air following him like a ghost. His mind was a tempest of anger, confusion, and a heart he felt cracking beneath the weight of betrayal. The image of Abigail's defiant eyes, her words still ringing sharp in his ears. You don't own me, burned bright, a cruel brand he couldn't erase. His hands trembled on the steering wheel, the leather grip digging into his palms, white-knuckled from the tension. The streets blurred beneath passing headlights, but the memories of the night clung fiercely. The laughter that had felt hollow, the daring kiss that had shattered his trust. When he finally reached home, the silence was suffocating, a cruel reminder of everything he had already lost. The house felt like a stranger's, a hollow shell echoing the ghosts of happier times. Every shadow seemed to mock him, every creak and whisper fueling the storm raging inside. He sank onto the couch, the worn cushion swallowing him, as the relentless replay in his mind refused to cease. Abigail's laughter with Tyler, the brush of their hands, the way her gaze drifted away from him, all etched painfully into his soul. The stillness was suddenly broken by the soft vibration of his phone. The screen lit up with an unknown number. Reluctantly, he answered. Hello. Nigel, a hesitant voice said. It's Brad, Lauren's boyfriend. Nigel's heart lurched. Yeah. I don't know how to say this, man, Brad's voice faltered. But you need to know Abigail's upstairs. She's with Tyler, in one of the bedrooms. The words struck like a thunderclap. Nigel's stomach churned violently. Are you sure? He croaked, voice raw. Yeah, I'm sorry, Nigel, you deserve to know. He hung up slowly, trembling fingers setting the phone down with a soft thud. His vision blurred slightly, but clarity pierced through. He had known deep down. The silence in the house pressed in as Nigel's eyes settled on their wedding photo, framed innocently on the mantel. Two young, hopeful faces staring back, unaware of the coming storm. In an eruption of fury, Nigel grabbed the frame and hurled it against the wall. The glass shattered in a burst of shards, the sound sharp and oddly satisfying. Pieces scattered at his feet, reflecting his broken heart. Driven by instinct, Nigel opened the closet and pulled out the folder holding their marriage papers, the promises they had made, now hollow and meaningless. His hands trembled as he tore the pages apart, the ripping sound filling the suffocating silence with the weight of finality. But destruction wasn't enough to contain the pain. With a hurried decision, he grabbed a bag, throwing in clothes without thought or care. He needed to escape. His own home had become a prison of memories and betrayal. The sterile decor of the hotel room was cold and impersonal, yet it was a strange comfort. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Nigel opened his laptop and logged into their shared bank account. A fierce clarity settled over him as he moved funds swiftly into his personal account. If Abigail could betray him so easily, she didn't deserve a dime. Sleep eluded him. He lay on the stiff mattress, mind racing with anger and disbelief. The events of the night tortured him, looping endlessly in his thoughts. Morning brought no relief. His phone buzzed incessantly, Abigail's name flashing on the screen. At first he ignored it, but eventually the aching need for closure compelled him to answer. His voice was hollow and cold. "What, Abigail? Where are you?" Her voice trembled, desperation creeping through. "Nigel, I woke up and you were gone. What's happening?" A bitter laugh escaped him, sharp and unforgiving. "You're really asking that? You stayed at the party," he said flatly. "Abigail, I told you what I saw. I know what it meant." "And then you went upstairs with Tyler." There was a long pause before she replied, voice barely a whisper. "Who told you?" "Does it matter?" Nigel snapped. "The truth is the truth, Nigel," she whispered, voice cracking. "Please, I made a mistake. I love you, we can fix this." His reply was firm, unyielding. "You destroyed everything, Abigail, now you live with it." He hung up before she could argue, the finality settling like a stone in his chest. Days later, Nigel returned to the house to collect more of his belongings. The place felt alien. Nothing here belonged to the man who had thought it home. As he pulled into the driveway, an unfamiliar car caught his eye. His chest tightened, dread and rage unfurling like a storm. Inside, the unmistakable sounds coming from the bedroom hit him like a sledgehammer. Whispered laughter, trembling breaths entwined. His feet felt leaden as he climbed the stairs, each step fueled by fury. The doorway framed the scene that would haunt him forever. Abigail and Tyler tangled in the bed they once shared, their bodies intimately close. Nigel's voice cracked, raw with pain. "What the hell is this?" Abigail froze, face paling. "Nigel, I didn't mean for you to see this." His hands trembled, fists clenching tightly at his sides. "Is this your mistake? Your regret?" Tyler scrambled awkwardly, guilt washing over his smug expression. Nigel ignored him, pulling out his phone and snapping photos, the cold precision of a man who refused to be erased or forgotten. His voice was icy. "You have 2 days. Get your things and be gone. If you're still here after that, I'll have the police remove you." Abigail's eyes filled with guilt, but Nigel's heart was a hollow void. Whatever love he once carried was replaced by a bleeding wound. He added sharply, "If I need a restraining order, I'll take it." Turning on his heel, Nigel left them behind, the echoes of shattered trust following his every step. The divorce was swift. Abigail packed, leaving with only what was hers. Nigel erased her from his life, photos, memories, tokens of a past now dust. The pain dulled with time, though it never vanished completely. His heart carried the harsh truth. Love without trust, loyalty, and respect is nothing but an illusion. Every Halloween, Nigel remembered the night his world collapsed, but also the night he found his strength. The strength to walk away from someone who never deserved him. And for that, he was grateful. In the days following his retreat from the party and the devastating confrontation, Nigel's world remained suspended in a fragile limbo. The house that should have been sanctuary turned into a gallery of shadows, echoing with memories that refused to fade. He moved through its empty rooms like a man swimming through fog, each step echoing the ache deep in his chest. The morning light scarcely pierced the heavy curtains as Nigel sat at the edge of the bed, his mind a relentless storm. The vivid image of Abigail and Tyler's careless intimacy haunted his thoughts, a brutal reminder of the trust shattered so completely. Yet amidst the turmoil, an unsettling part of him clung to memories of their happier times, pleading for answers that would never come. His phone buzzed again, messages from Abigail pleading, apologizing, promises thin and fragile like cobwebs in a tempest. But Nigel's heart had grown numb to empty words. He realized some bridges, once burned, could never be rebuilt. One evening, seeking escape, Nigel found himself walking through the neighborhood park. The cool air bit at his cheeks, and the crunch of fallen leaves underfoot punctuated his solitary thoughts. The world moved, indifferent to his pain, but he felt strangely disconnected, a spectator outside his own life. As he rounded a corner, a familiar figure appeared. It was Lauren, the party's host and silent witness to that night's chaos. Their eyes met briefly, and without a word she nodded, a mutual understanding flickering in the quiet space between them. Both bore invisible scars, and neither spoke of the wounds fresh and raw. Weeks passed as Nigel tried to rebuild the fragments of his life. The evening parties, once a source of joy, became distant memories tinged with bitterness. He concentrated on work, pouring himself into every project, every meeting. Yet at night, the bed beside him remained cold and empty, the silence a cacophony of loneliness. One day, as autumn leaves fell like memories caught in time, Nigel's determination wavered. He sat at the kitchen table, a letter in hand, the solicitor's notice finalizing the divorce. The cold print pressed into his palms like a weight heavier than stone. A chapter was closing, but the book was far from finished. The house was quiet now, emptied of Abigail's presence but filled with the ghosts of their past. Nigel's gaze wandered to a small box tucked away on a shelf, a collection of souvenirs from happier days, concert tickets, photos, ticket stubs from trips. He traced a finger over the faded ink on one photo of them smiling, lost in a moment of pure joy. It stung, a bittersweet ache, but deep inside change was stirring. The painful lessons of betrayal were teaching him resilience he hadn't known he possessed. He began small. Morning runs, rediscovering passions long buried under years of routine. He reconnected with friends he had drifted from and allowed himself moments of laughter and lightness, hesitant but healing. Nigel knew the road ahead was long and uncertain. Some nights, the loneliness threatened to pull him under, waves of grief crashing relentlessly. Yet in the darkest hours, a fragile seed of hope took root, the promise of a life rebuilt, where love could be trusted and pain could be overcome. As Halloween approached once more, Nigel stood looking at his reflection in the mirror. The pirate boots were gone, replaced by the sturdy shoes of a man who'd weathered a storm. His eyes held both the weight of loss and the fierce glimmer of survival. He whispered to himself, strength threading through the quiet resolve, "This time, I'll choose me." The weeks turned into months. Nigel found himself gradually emerging from the haze of betrayal and heartbreak. The fierce storm that had consumed his life was beginning to settle, leaving behind a landscape both scarred and ripe for new growth. Each day brought its own challenges, a delicate dance of facing memories while seeking a future beyond the ruins. He had moved into a modest apartment, its walls devoid of the haunting echoes that lingered in the house he once called home. The sparse space felt foreign at first, but slowly it became a sanctuary, an empty canvas where he could begin to paint a new life. Every morning, Nigel rose before dawn and laced up his running shoes. The cold morning air bit against his skin as he pushed through the streets, each footfall grounding him, a rhythmic reminder that he was still here, still fighting, still breathing. The pain still lingered, but in the rhythm of his steps, he found a measure of peace. At work, Nigel threw himself into projects with renewed focus. His sharp mind and unwavering dedication began to shine anew, earning respect from colleagues who noticed the quiet strength now shadowing his presence. Yet beyond the professional world, he felt vacant, a hollow yearning for connection that no amount of achievements could fill. One evening, after a particularly long day, Nigel found himself standing before a small cafe. The warm glow spilling onto the sidewalk stirred a flicker of warmth in his chest. Tentatively, he stepped inside, greeted by the comforting aroma of coffee and soft chatter filling the room. It was a new beginning in the smallest of places, a step toward reclaiming the parts of himself long neglected. As the days passed, Nigel allowed himself moments of laughter, of lightness, small victories over the darkness that once threatened to consume him. He reconnected with old friends, rebuilt bridges, and found solace in conversations that didn't revolve around pain but hope. The approaching Halloween brought with it a mix of emotions. Memories of that dreadful night haunted his thoughts, but this year they were tempered by strength, not despair. Nigel browsed through photos from past celebrations, smiling faintly at the ghosts of happier times before setting them gently aside. His gaze lifted to the calendar, the approaching date no longer a source of dread but a marker of how far he had come. One quiet evening, Nigel sat at his kitchen table, penning a letter, not to Abigail but to himself. A promise to honor the journey he had endured, to never settle for less than the respect and love he deserved. The words flowed freely, an act of healing etched in ink. In this new chapter, Nigel understood that trust could be rebuilt, not in others but within himself. The scars of betrayal remained, but they no longer defined him. They were reminders of resilience, symbols of a man who chose to stand tall in the face of ruin. His heart, once battered and broken, now beat with a cautious hope. The future was uncertain and fragile, yet shimmering with possibility, a blank page waiting to be written with stories of courage, self-love, and newfound joy. As the first leaves of autumn fell, Nigel stepped outside, sunlight warming his face. His eyes lifted toward the horizon, clear and steady. "This time," he whispered, "I choose life." The once familiar rhythm of life now beat to a different cadence for Nigel. The scars left by betrayal and heartbreak remained, permanent and palpable, a testimony to nights spent wrestling with pain, anger, and loss. Yet beneath their weight, a new strength had quietly taken root, whispering promises of healing and renewal. Living alone in his modest apartment, Nigel carved out routines that anchored him. Mornings began with long runs through the awakening city streets, the crisp air filling his lungs, and every stride a small act of reclaiming power over a life once fractured. The relentless ache had loosened its grip, replaced by quiet moments of hope. Work became not just a distraction but a channel for purpose. Nigel found satisfaction in accomplishments, the respect of colleagues growing alongside his steadily rebuilding confidence. Yet beyond professional achievements, he sought something more. Connection, meaning, a new sense of belonging. One late afternoon, fate intervened in the form of a local community art class he impulsively joined. Surrounded by strangers sketching vivid scenes and sharing stories, Nigel found himself drawn into a world that celebrated creation and vulnerability. Through the strokes of his pencil, he began to express the complex emotions hiding beneath his guarded heart. Slowly, friendships blossomed, not born from shared pain but from genuine laughter, kindness, and the simple joy of companionship. Nigel allowed himself to trust again, inch by careful inch. Halloween approached once more, casting long shadows and golden hues over the city. Nigel prepared differently this year. No costumes meant to mask, no parties to test fragile resoluteness. Instead, he chose solitude, a peaceful night spent reflecting on the journey from darkness to dawn. Sitting quietly by the window, the glow of distant lights painting patterns on his walls, he thought back to the day his life shattered and how far he had come since. The memories no longer tormented, they had become threads in a tapestry of growth, pain woven with resilience. A soft knock at the door startled him. Standing there was Lauren, the same woman who had borne witness to the night of betrayal and now a steadfast friend. She smiled gently, holding 2 cups of steaming tea. "Thought you might like some company," she offered. Nigel nodded, the warmth in her invitation settling something deep within him. Together, they sat in the quiet comfort of shared understanding, the weight of past wounds softened by present kindness. As the night deepened, Nigel realized that healing was not about forgetting or erasing the past. It was about honoring the pain, learning from it, and choosing to move forward with courage. Love, once fractured, could be rebuilt, not just in others but within himself. Looking out into the crisp autumn night, Nigel felt a peace that eluded him for so long. His heart, though still wrapped in cautious protection, beat with renewed life. The future stretched ahead, not defined by betrayal or loss, but by the strength to embrace new beginnings. With a quiet smile, he whispered to the night, "This is my time, my life, my story." And for the first time in years, it felt truly his. Time in years, it felt truly his.